All right, Daniel, we ready? Nope, that's a no. That is a no, sir, right there. We are live on the internet. Well then, internet, welcome everyone to our stream. We are Nightdive Studios. We are making System Shock right now. We are in the last 48 hours. We just hit, I think, hour 47 left of our Kickstarter campaign with the team here. We have myself. I'm Jonathan Peros. I do the audio. We have Daniel Gratian, Gratian, who
yes.
is the producer on the team. Gratian. And we have Stephen Kick, our leader and CEO. We also have with us Rob Waters, who is our concept artist and the concept artist from the original System Shock 2, Thief Games, BioShock, Freedom Force. Amazing artist. We also have coming in soon, we have Warren Spector, Paul Nurith, and Tim Stelmach of System Shock 1 fame, well, of many other games fame. But these guys were on the original System Shock 1 team. They are working at Other Side Entertainment currently, who are the gentlemen that we've been working with to make System Shock 3. And they're going to be stopping in a little bit. They're doing some prep work right now. So we're going to play through the demo of System Shock right now with us, and then the Other Side guys are going to come and pop in and start talking about that, and then we're going to go into the original System Shock with the original makers, and I think it's going to be a cool stream. On this stream, if you see below in the info section, you'll see a link that says Kickstarter. If you haven't already, please check out the Kickstarter campaign. We are getting to the final stretch now, and we are making stretch goals at this point. We have been funded, and we are continuing funding, and the whole campaign has been just awesome because of you guys. Also, you're going to see a new tweet this button. Also, go ahead and do that if you guys could. Share this stream to your friends. It'll set up a tweet for you so that we can get more people seeing this awesome stream, more eyes on the project, more ears listening to us, Paul, Warren, and Tim. As for the status, we announced some Kickstarter stretch goals today. We announced more stretch goals for VR support, mod support, for the System Shock source code, which is going to be awesome. And also, if you do follow us on Twitch, tomorrow, starting at noon Pacific, we are going to have a 24-hour stream with a lot of guests for the closing hours of our Kickstarter campaign. As for guests, we have coming in, we have Alexander Brandon from Deus Ex. While we go through Deus Ex with him, we have Rachel Messer, who's Rebecca Lansing's VO, who's going to play some Warframe with me. We're going to have Chris Avalone play through Fallout New Vegas with us. We're going to have people on our team like Jonah Loeb show how he does 3D modeling. We're going to have Max do animation on stream. We're going to have a whole schedule that's going to come out today, so keep up with the Kickstarter updates. It's going to be really awesome.
We just confirmed that Steve Gaynor, the head of Fulbright Studios here in Portland, is going to be joining us as well at, I think, 9 p.m. on Wednesday. And he was also responsible for the design work on BioShock 2 Minerva's Den DLC. So that's going to be really fun to have Steve on the show. And I think he's requesting that we play No One Lives Forever. So we might do that.
Oh, I know that you guys wanted to play some No One Lives Forever, and we couldn't figure out when or how to do that. So I'm sure Daniel will be real excited about that. All right, well, Daniel, you want to get the demo started for us?
Dustmancer is actually saying, "Are we gonna push this? Maybe we should do that."
Ooh, yeah, we should absolutely do that.
All right. So, yeah, this is the very first room in the game. And actually, the first thing that we did months, actually about a year ago, this past July, I teamed up with some artist friends of mine, and we built this first room as kind of just a prototype, just to see, what this first room would look like directly translated from the original game, to see if, you know, um, it would be good enough to move forward and kind of flesh out the rest of this and then pitch it to you guys as a project that Nightdive would take on. So this room, I've seen a lot of iterations, and actually, if you go back to some of our Kickstarter updates, you'll see some early prototype shots that I've posted in there.
Also of note in this room, there's that steam that's coming out, and that is what I use to do pretty much all of my debugging when it comes to environmental sounds in the game, because if anything in Unity breaks with our audio integration, then that steam breaks, and you cannot just even guess the amount of times where I load that up, the steam isn't working, and I go, God dang it, we have to figure something out.
Yeah, how many times did that happen? You're like,
Oh my
John,
God.
I can't hear the sparks anymore.
I swear half my job on this project is fixing those damn sparks and steam.
I think, Daniel, the health and energy values are the exact same as the original game too, right? When you wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, with these animations, you'll probably notice a big difference from the first version of the demo we released when the Kickstarter first launched. I mean, we heard everybody's feedback, and they're like, "Man, this is just way too long." And so that was one of the first things that we did, is we cut the length of those animations. Why do the gloves have 2 missing fingers? Kaimo Daisetsu is asking on Twitch. Rob, Rob, are you there? Okay, maybe Rob's not hooked up. What were you gonna say, John?
I was gonna guess that it's so that when the hacker needs to use his iPhone, he can have some bare fingertips with which to tap the buttons. Yeah, Rob's in here. I think his mic is just muted. I also remember when we were discussing about it. I remember the discussions. I think the reason why the two gloves, the 2 fingers are showing, is to humanize it a little more, because before the original concepts, I think, were just gloves, and there wasn't going to be any skin at all, and it made it harder to relate to the hacker as a person. Whereas if you see some flesh, it makes it easier to suspend the belief that you are that character.
I seem to remember having that discussion, when we first got those concepts back from Rob, and I think that was a pretty good choice because, the gloves are so futuristic. There's those glowing circuitry, and it kind of gives a great contrast between, the cybernetic life forms that you fight later on, and then, your own humanity.
Yeah.
I'm about to pick up the multimedia data reader, so we'll be hearing Rebecca Lansing's incoming audio log in a second.
Oh, yep. She will be, again, her voice actress, Rachel Messer, will be on this stream at 2 p.m. Pacific tomorrow, playing Warframe with us. And you should check her out on Twitch or Twitter. She's actually phenomenal. She does a lot of anime work too.
Yeah, GTG 3000. It is a work in progress audio log. We know that there have been some comments about Rebecca's relationship with the player and how it's not consistent with the first game. And one of the reasons that we did this and we kind of wrote a new log was just to give an example, more than anything, of the style of the new logs that we want to create. And yeah, just to provide you guys with an example of what you can expect. Tygon Panthera is saying that the game audio is very low. Is that true for everybody? They want, okay,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
want
I'm seeing
turned
more
up
of
a
that
little
too.
bit. Okay. Dan, is there any way you can...
Yeah, I'll
I
mess
think
with that
Rob's
one.
here. I fixed it.
Hello?
Hey, Rob.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Rob Waters, everyone. Concept artist for this game and the previous System Shock games, BioShock games, Thief games.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Rob Waters, everyone.
Uh-oh. Rob, you might have to put headphones on. We're getting
Yeah.
you.
Oh, okay.
Also, Daniel, did you enable the overlay in the demo?
I did. It's not showing up. No. Oh well. That might mean restarting Discord.
No, you should need to restart it. It might be a separate app, though, if you're running it directly. So you might need to grant it permissions.
Technical difficulty, folks. Just 1 sec.
Woo!
Sorry.
Sorry, did we not expect this at some point?
Rob,
One
do you have any
moment.
feedback on the design decision for the gloves? I know it was kind of a question that we're getting.
He's muted. I think he's looking for headphones for himself.
Oh, okay. John, this would be a good time to play the elevator music.
Yeah. I don't know how to do that in I don't know how to do that in Discord.
I think I might have to restart Discord. I will be just a few moments.
All right. Well, I'm going to answer some questions on Twitch here. So, Coke Bottle, why does the bot carry around a can of soda? Before Citadel Station, completely went to hell, that he was a serve bot, and he would basically go around and provide you with treats and snacks and sodas and anything else that you could use while you were working. And so
His great-great-grandfather was a Roomba.
Okay, I think yeah, that's working now.
Valet 2, tell us the story. How did you find the source one? Where? We might have to ask Paul Nerath about that when he signs on a bit later. All I know is that based on what he told me, they basically went into the archives and they were able to find it somewhere. But I'm sure that this story is a lot more interesting than that.
They're a rolling mini fridge. Hey, mini fridges don't have arms that stab you in the gut.
You know how in Return of the Jedi, R2 was basically like just a rolling cocktail tray? Yeah.
That's a pretty good idea. Maybe we should kickstart that next. Like a mobile mini fridge.
We're getting into the appliance business. I'm gonna have so much music to write for that fridge. It'll have a jingle when it opens. When you fill it with vegetables, it'll have a little victory fanfare. When leftovers go bad, it's gonna have, tense battle music.
Yeah, what's weird is the surf bots. I know a lot of people say that it reminds them of that the character from Power Rangers.
Ay, 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 ay!
I definitely see that, but for whatever reason, they remind me of that robot that Rob Schneider hides in the 1995 version of Judge Dredd, starring Stallone. I don't know why that makes me think of that.
It's a good movie.
I don't know, man.
Talk about where Daniel right now is in the demo and what kind of, commentate on it.
Grenades. I have grenades now.
Yeah, this was kind of a fun thing. We didn't have time to implement the grenades during the first release of the demo, but we were hard at work as soon as the Kickstarter launched, and we made sure that you could throw those and blow things up. And I was pretty pleased with how those worked out.
I think Rob is available again if you wanted him to talk about some stuff in here.
I love the
Rob,
energy
are you there?
stations.
Yeah, I think so.
Hey, Rob.
Awesome. Yeah. Actually, I have a question for you, Rob. In System Shock 1 and in Bioshock Infinite, these games that have, your first weapon is like the melee weapon, right? It's like the pipe.
Yep.
What was your design process when creating this pipe? Because I know that when we were talking about it, we wanted it to be like a futuristic space pipe, but we didn't want to put like lights and blinky things all over it. There's in these types of games, like the Looking Glass family of games, it's the pipe is your first weapon of choice, and it ends up being kind of an iconic thing that runs throughout. Was there any kind of thought process that you had behind this iteration over any of the other pipes and bludgeoning devices that you've designed in the past?
Well, I think for this one, I'm fairly certain way back in the day I did that, little pipe bit map from the original game, and so directly translated, it just ends up looking pretty lame as far as, just being more or less a cylinder. So I just wanted to, beef it up a bit more and build it out, give it some heft, some chunkiness. So it'd just be more satisfying when you're like bludgeoning someone, and then the color was added. I did that specifically orange so it would, stand apart from the, the predominantly blue areas that you're in, at least in this initial part. But at the very least, it just does a splash of color, against, whatever it's, coming against.
Yeah, I think one of my goals, I like to make props on the side. I was thinking about going to the hardware store and seeing if I could actually build one of these things from like PVC.
Yeah, it'd be possible.
Stage went well.
Man, PVC isn't gonna. It's not gonna donk hard enough. I had to bring it in this one. I had to.
Thanks, John.
I'm gonna grenade this mutant.
Yeah,
Oh, but he's just in the corner.
backtracking to the gloves, you're right. I think ultimately that's why we showed the finger. So there was that. So there wasn't the question mark as far as if you were a robot or whatnot. You could see the flesh of your fingers and just know that you're human and just have cool gloves.
Let's see, we're getting a question from Jungle Strike Guy. Did Terry re-record those lines for the demo, or are they from the original game audio? We actually reused the original audio for that, but kind of like with what we did with Rebecca Lansing's line, we're going to go back and revisit all that stuff and re-record it and make it fresh and kind of put a new, I guess, how would you describe it, John? Like a new kind of glitchy.
Yeah, I mean, I want to keep the glitchiness actually pretty close to the original, because that's such a huge part of her character, and I feel like changing that too much, if even much at all, is gonna make Shodan come off different. Her voice is very iconic, and I don't really want to touch that. We can, I mean, she'll have different lines that Chris will work on, but I think when it comes to her tonality and the way that she glitches, I don't think that there's any way that we should really be changing much with that. I mean, just having recordings at higher fidelity than we're able to be done in 1994 games when it came to space requirements for video games. Yeah.
I just want to say that I never thought Shodan was glitchy. I just felt all those were features and made her more beautiful.
How noble of you.
Oh, Max has joined us, our animator.
Hey, Max.
Hello.
Valet 2, to kind of go along with what we're talking about, he says, Greg did the voice processing for SS1, Eric did for the second, who's going to make Shodan sound in this game. We are having Eric Brocious do the processing and the engineering on Terry's voice for this game.
Did Greg do it in the first one, or did Eric do it in the first one?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Rob might know.
What was the question?
Do you know if Eric Brocious or Greg LaPiccolo did the processing for Shodan's voice in Shock 1?
That, let me see. That I do not know.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions here.
And amazing comments. I just love Shodan's a strong, independent AI who don't need no human.
Max, I think they want to just hear you talk.
This guy has a good question. Leah Ritali, 1917. What are the plans for a a Shodan romance side quest? Are we gonna have Chris work on that, or?
No comment. We're not allowed to talk about that.
Oh, it's too early in development. Shh, sorry.
Sorry, no, we can't. Yeah.
Romance side quest. Yeah, Data from Star Trek is going to show up after having broken up with the Borg Queen.
What can we say? He has a type.
Oh, mutant lives matter. Okay.
Oh, gross.
Oh, Max, I'm not sure if you saw it. Like, Daniel just indiscriminately grenaded a mutant that was just sulking in a corner, minding his own business. It was cruel.
That's really rude.
Yeah, that's pretty
shit
rude,
himself.
dude.
He didn't do anything to you, Daniel.
But he would have given the opportunity.
Oh, that's
What?
profiling.
Do you just go around blowing people up who are uglier than you?
I got a question for our Twitch, for our community here. In regards to the puzzle, do you guys like the fact that you can interact with it in world, or would you rather have it be similar to how you interact with the boxes, where a separate dialogue box comes up, and then from there you can kind of interact with the puzzle?
Like
That
the
makes
interact
sense.
mode in Shock 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, basically, should it be diegetic or should it be a separate UI?
In world. Pop up.
Although I definitely think it would help if we somehow to control the camera to really make it
Guys,
so people
I
could
think
see
it'll be
better.
split. At the end of the day,
you know
we
that
just-
sort of stuff.
we'll just choose whatever we feel is working best.
Exactly.
Well, there could be a way to sort of have both, maybe, where the camera kind of locks into it a little bit, and it's still in the world, but then you can sort of move your crosshair, so it's not a separate icon in the HUD that shows up in the corner of the screen that you click on with a mouse, but instead the camera kind of locks in, and then you can use the crosshair as a mouse to select, and that way we might have the best of both worlds. It keeps it diegetic when it comes to atmosphere, but it's also easier to control. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to get everybody's opinion, just out of curiosity.
I love the repair bots.
Oh yeah, I love the fact that they explode now, and the arc of electricity that comes out of them is just, when it hits you, it feels like it's tearing through you.
Yeah, that turned out really great.
Remember, everyone, if you back the Kickstarter at a certain tier, I think it's the big box tier, you get a little print of those guys. You get your own little model of those little cutie patootie scorpion men.
Yeah, and the way that we're kind of planning it, I can't confirm this, but what we'd like to do is basically when you receive the big box and you open it up, the repair bot will come in a little sealed foil bag, as if he's coming straight from the manufacturer, like our fictional manufacturer. And when you open it up, you'll be able to assemble it yourself, kind of like build your own repair bot.
It saves us the cost of having to pay someone to build these repair bots for them. I thought you were gonna say they come in the little bags, and it'd be like little Shopkins. where you gotta collect them all.
No, it doesn't save us the time. It adds interactivity to the experience.
Hey people, when you're gonna be building the repair bots, would you like it to be in the world or in a separate UI?
I love that the lights, every single light pretty much is destructible in the environment. It really adds to it, and we'll have things like grenades hopefully affect that,
What did the
explosions
lights
and
ever
things
do
in
to
the
you,
world.
Daniel? Huh?
I just like destroying things.
Oh man, I think I just realized something I gotta put in a bug for then. When it comes to audio and breaking those lights, they have a ground hum each of those lights because there's that little switch on sequence, and each of them have their own little low proximity hum that comes from it. And I don't think that turns off when you break the light like it should.
Ah,
Oh, Cameo. We can't go past that door. That's not an available area quite yet.
we've got safety railings.
Do you think the station is OSHE compliant?
OSHA compliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Safety railings. You got to have them, or space OSHA will come and get you. Railing death incoming. Yeah.
Hey guys, mind if I add an other side person to this now?
I would
Sure.
mind it, but in a very positive way.
All right. Well, here it comes. He needs to unmute himself though and introduce himself.
The anticipation's killing me.
I know, right?
Same.
They're still muted.
Who is it? Maybe we can have a guess in chat.
No, keep holding your breath, John. This will work out great for everybody.
The whole chat. Who is it? The suspense is killing me.
Look, it's Pluto.
Almost there.
Yep. You'll just have to click the little microphone icon down below.
Maybe I went to the kitchen and go get some Cheez-Its.
I just really
Colours,
love
dude, the colours.
just standing in this room and just watching the sun go by.
The sun, which you'd like to destroy if you could.
No, it's pretty important the last time I checked.
Yeah, this is
And
one of
mutants
those
aren't
areas.
important?
This is one of the areas in the game where, in the original, all you're treated with is like a 2x3 window that just looks out into blackness with a couple of white stars, and we kind of looked at that as our opportunity to show you guys what we have in mind for a lot of these areas where we feel like the real scale of Citadel Station can be shown and be felt while you're playing the game. And so there's a bunch of other areas in the game that we're going to address in a similar way.
Yeah, it was really important to us to in the original, or to in the first couple rooms have things be pretty accurate to the original to show you guys that we do want to respect the original in that sense. We want people to recognize things when they play the demo, but then we're able to, once we get that recognition of the original game in this demo, we're able to start showing how we can take that original vision and start to push it into more modern, realistic ways, like this room, which is more something that might actually be on the space station.
So good news. Our other side guest is working now. Go ahead and introduce yourself, people from other side.
Oh, hey, can you hear me now? This is Tim.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, hi.
Hey, Tim.
Hey.
I was so desperate there because I heard you talking about the view out the port, and I have a story.
Oh, perfect. Well, actually, an anecdote.
Hang on. Tim, first can you introduce yourself and tell us what you did on the original game?
Yeah, my name is Tim Stelmach. I was one of the design team on the original System Shock. So I did, the whole team was so collaborative. I don't remember if we had individual job titles or anything, but among other things, I did a bunch of the level design. I did the science level and the engineering level and parts of other stuff. I did some of the design on the those hardware hacking puzzles for opening doors and stuff. Coding for the little mini games that you get in your interface, and I forget what all. There's lots of miscellaneous stuff in addition to a bunch of level design. So that's me. Yeah, this view out the window. You were talking about how in the original there was just these like this distant star field. Up until like just literally like a couple of weeks before we shipped, we didn't have the star field. We just had like star patterned wallpaper on those windows. And so like we all disliked it so much that like James Fleming, who was one of the engineers on the project, he was desperate to get in like a parallaxing star field. And Warren, who we can give shit for this later when he comes on, right? Like he was trying to get us all to finish the game, right? So James gets this star field in, and actually Harvey Smith was lead playtester down at Origin with Warren at the time, and he was the first to see that we had like put this feature in at the last minute. And so he like turns to Warren and says like, "Hey, there's a star field out this window." And Warren's like, "What?" And then Harvey, just to troll him, says, "Yeah, and I think there's like one of the Kilrathi spaceships from Wing Commander out there."
Oh my god, you think Kilrathi? Oh.
Totally made this up just to like screw with it. It was beautiful. Anyway, that's my story about the stars.
That's my new headcanon. Is System Shock is a prequel to Wing Commander.
It's all in the same universe canonically.
Yeah.
Love that you can see the groves from the windows as well if you look up.
Oh yeah, that's a nice touch. No, I love this view. When I first saw this in the demo, I was so happy.
Now, kind of a funny story. Actually, a couple weeks before this demo, we had star wallpaper as well.
Nice.
So, any other stories you guys want to tell about this room?
Oh.
Well, what about any of the previous rooms too? He wasn't here in some of the earlier ones. Are we going to go back?
I was kind of watching. I really liked. Someone was commenting on. I think maybe on the chat on all the work that you guys have done to sort of interpret all these surfaces, because the original game was a tile-based game. Everything was on this square grid. The walls were just flat textures. Like everything was just painted on, and like especially like those sections where it was like where there's like plumbing all over the walls. Like someone had to go in and like model all that stuff that like in the original game was literally again just wallpaper. I really like the sort of the meticulous work here of and if you side by side them, like they're very different, but it's very faithful. I mean, in addition to obviously like not being wallpaper, right? Like, the interpretation is just wonderful. I really wanted to call that out after seeing that comment in the comments. I really in the chat rather. I really liked it. And someone else was mentioning the UI work you did here, and it's funny, like the constraints that we were working under at the time, right? Like we're the first first person 3D game I can think of that did did crouching and leaning and looking up and down and stuff? Oh, did I lose you?
No.
Nope.
Okay, sorry. We just had.
We're all listening to your beautiful voice.
And so like no one really knew how we were going to explain to the players that this was even a thing you could do, and it was way before like anyone had developed the first mouse look. So sadly, we didn't have that to copy. So we ended up with this, for people who I don't know if you have a mental picture of the original System Shock, but there's this little figure in the UI that you could literally like grab the dude in the UI and drag him around to change your posture in addition to like the keyboard commands and everything. Like we erred so far on the side of just like surfacing all the players' options on the HUD, which on the one hand I've heard some people say that like they really appreciate how thematic that like cyber interface look in that game is, but man, it was busy.
Yeah, it takes up a lot of screen space.
Yes, it definitely did. And that's one of the challenges, right? Again, that I've been watching you guys tackle with this game is honestly modernizing that, because there's a lot of decisions that if we had the history of game development between then and now to work with, like we probably would have made differently in terms of that the whole front end user interface, right? So
I recall in there's a dev stream with some of the Shock 1 devs playing through the game, and I seem to recall Austin Grossman in that stream saying that if there is a game that doesn't have a fatigue system and 3 levels of clickable crouch, then it's a mamby-pamby game that he doesn't want any part of.
That sounds like Austin, yeah. He is a hilarious dude.
Can I just pause for a second and just take a quick break to tell everyone that we just hit $1.2 million in our Kickstarter during this stream. So thank you everyone who's watching. Thank you to all of you who have backed and helped us get this far. That has just unlocked the stretch goal for localization in French, Italian, German, and Spanish.
Awesome.
I think there have been talks of adding other very popular languages too, but I don't think we can confirm anything on those yet. But anyway, thank you guys so much for that.
I had an important interruption. Somebody
interrupt my interruption.
Oh no! Somebody requested to be brought into the channel ahead of schedule. So everybody, I'd like to introduce Warren Spector. Warren, please introduce yourself and tell folks what you did on System Shock.
Hey everybody, I sure hope you can hear me because man, I've been having some audio problems. Awesome. This is Warren Spector. I was the producer on the game, which meant I worked out of the Origin office in Austin, Texas, and traveled up to Boston to work with the team as often as I could, because it was way more fun working with the Looking Glass guys than it was working on most of the stuff I was working on in Austin. And I just wanted to address Tim's little story about there were actually, okay, so here's the deal. We're like, it wasn't weeks before we were done. It was like the day before we went beta. And it was moving Starfield. And if I remember correctly, the rotating cameras both went in. And I was there with Harvey at like 2 a.m. And he told me what was going on, and I was ready to fly up there that day and kill you guys. But then I went into my office and I did a little happy dance, because that's what makes games great. It's those things that come in at the last minute that the team really burns to do. So I was really happily mad at everybody.
So you mentioned all those things that people put in last minute, and those are all the great things. I think you just described our demo that we're playing here.
Hey, now this wasn't last minute. This was carefully thought out, planned, and we intend to do everything from the beginning. Everything went smoothly and according to plan. Yep.
Well, I just got to go on record saying I think the game is looking great, and you know, just I've always said that if we just updated the graphics and the UI and maybe the sound on System Shock, we would still have the state of the art in gaming, and I think you guys are proving it. And I don't know what that says about the rest of gaming. I'll leave that to other people to decide. But the word pathetic is coming to mind, but that's just me being a jerk, I guess.
Well, thank you, Warren. We really appreciate that.
We're reaching the end of the demo here, guys.
Oh no. Well, we're 15 minutes away from the System Shock 1 stuff. So, I mean, we could just share stories about development things that we faced, and I don't know, got any good war stories, Steven?
Good war stories. Bringing you on board is one.
Yeah, that was that's hurt.
No, I mean, I think that the development of the demo was just was a lot smoother than I anticipated, especially as Nightdive's first major foray into this space. We just had the right people on board. We looked to you know, the original creators for the inspiration, and I don't think we could have gone wrong. Geez, what else, man? What a trip this whole thing has been. Like I said earlier, we started working on this about a year ago, just as a conceptual thing for our own kind of internal purposes, and being able to share it with everybody, whether or not they back the project or not on Kickstarter, I think really shows, you know, our commitment and our passion towards delivering something that we all love and that we all personally believe in. And yeah, I'm overwhelmed by the support you guys have given us, and I couldn't be more grateful.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anyone on the team who just does not or did not already love System Shock 2. So I think that's come through a lot, and there's been a lot of, you know, discussions and debates among the team of how certain things should be handled, and, you know, a lot of back and forth, but it's always come from a place of, you know, people who are passionate about what we're doing, and it's only coming from the place that we all have all loved this series for a long enough time to have that close of a relationship with it, that we believe in it so much.
Yeah, I cannot tell you how gratifying it is to see this happening as well, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. This is Warren again. When it, you know, when the IDOS Montreal guys said they were going to do new Deus Ex games, everybody asked me, you know, if I was mad about that or upset or anything. And I think they wanted me to be mad. But in the same way that with System Shock, all I feel is, you know, hey, it's like one of our babies grew up, you know, and is leaving home now. It is so cool to have been part of something that's bigger than yourself, that has a life beyond you. There aren't many developers who can say that that's happened to them. And I've been lucky enough to have it happen. Wow, when Underworld Ascendant ships, it'll be 3 times. So it'd be nice if more developers got to see that happen, see their you know, creations from 22 years ago coming back with new life. It's pretty exciting.
So if System Shock is your baby that grew up, does that make us your sons-in-laws?
Well, I think you have. Hey Tim, how big was the team? About 30 people. I think you have 30 fathers. So.
Oh man, Christmas is gonna be crazy.
It really was. You know, there's a thing called in business management circles called a gelled team, and I can't think of too many that were more gelled, and it's a good thing, by the way. More gelled than the System Shock team. It was pretty amazing, and it was a bunch of folks who came off of Underworld, as their first project, and a bunch of people who never worked on a game before, so they didn't know what was impossible. And I think that's one of the things that made the game, if I can say so on their behalf, so great.
Yeah, it definitely broke a lot of ground because they didn't think that things were impossible. You know, they were putting in so many things that just weren't standardized at the time.
And so many hours. Don't forget that. There was a lot of work. I remember flying up there and working with folks on story and working on bug tracking and everything. And there would be bug meetings at like 2 a.m. It was pretty nutty.
Yeah, lots of random futons thrown about the office that people would.
Forget about the futons. What was that brown thing? There was some brown furniture-like thing in the office that I don't even want to think about it.
Did we still have that weird fuzzy couch in System Shock?
Amen, brother.
Oh man, we had that way back starting on Underworld 1, where like that was the napping couch basically.
Yes, I choose not to think about all of the dead skin cells that were deposited in that thing.
It was weird. It was so 1970s. It was this like shag brown fuzzy couch thing. And it was yeah, this tilted reclining. I can't even explain this.
It was like one of those 0G, couch chair things. I mean, like I remember it being curved really strangely and being, other than the disgusting factor, it was about the most comfortable thing I ever put my body.
Yeah. No, it looks like from a distance it would look like one of those elegant divans that Roman nobles would recline on to take their meals, and from close up it looked like Chewbacca.
And smelled like him too. And none of this has anything to do with the making of the new game.
Oh, it totally does. This is relevant.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember how we got on this topic, but I love it.
You can just call me the randomizer. That's okay.
Daniel, can you go ahead and load up System Shock 1? Or
Yep,
I guess
sure thing.
finish the demo and go to 1.
Speaking of random, I have one little nugget that's stuck with me after all these years, as far as just like an experience I had with one of the programmers back then.
Okay, share.
When I was originally doing did the artwork for the pipe, and I remember Art Min asked me for a hand art for the laser rapier.
Be careful what you say. Art is lurking.
Yeah.
I'm serious. He is lurking right now.
Is Art here?
Art is, yes, he's lurking.
This is good stuff. I'll never forget how mad he. I had never, I had never worked on a game, had, pretty much no idea what I was doing. So they asked me for the, hand art for the laser rapier. So I took the lead pipe and I colorized it like a glowing blue, and but it was the same art, and I figured, well, it's a lightsaber, I'll just recolor this thing, and but it was not. I was not meaning to be lazy about it or anything. I just didn't know, to me it made sense. So anyway, I gave it to Art and he implemented it, and next thing I knew, he was at my desk and he was just fuming mad. And I think he was mad because when he, it basically, when you switch weapons from the pipe to the laser rapier, it basically looked like you were, suddenly the pipe started glowing, because it was the exact same art.
I don't think anybody. Go ahead.
Well, I think he was mad at me because he thought I was being lazy, but I had no idea. I was just I don't know, how about this, and I forget ultimately what I ended up doing, probably changing the, position of it or something, so it didn't snap right into the exact, position of the pipe. But I just remember just how mad he was, and just like that.
I don't think anybody cared once they started playing, because that laser rapier was badass.
But I can totally see though, like exactly how that happened, and exactly like that moment that you didn't anticipate of it, like snapping. It's like.
So I've just been informed that we have another guest joining us. New guest, please introduce yourself and tell us what you did on System Shock.
This is Paul Nura, and I helped get the game off the ground. Did some early concept work and put the team together.
Hello?
Oh.
All of a sudden, I'm hearing nothing. Uh-oh.
I had a really horrible feeling that my internet connection had gone down for a moment then.
No, it's not you, Daniel.
Hello, we back?
Yeah, you're back.
All right, we had a little glitch there.
A little glitch.
Well, thank you for joining us.
It's great to see System Shock coming back.
Paul, how long had, before we met and before we started, working together, how long ago was it in your plans to eventually do a System Shock 3?
Well, we had, it really started after we did System Shock 2. The plan was to move forward with it. But then EA at that point wasn't super interested in doing a new version because when System Shock 2 came out in 1999, the sales weren't that great out the gate. And then not long after, Looking Glass itself folded, so that created its own set of hurdles. So it never really got traction.
But you guys actually even did a concept for it, right? I mean, there was a concept document.
Yeah, but very, very sketchy. Just sort of, here's what we might do. We really didn't put any work into it back at that time.
Oh, there's a comment about the floppy disk version. Oh my God, there are stories about that too. No one wanted to ship the floppy version, but some company that we were working for that's already been named that we won't name insisted that we ship the game in time for Christmas, and that we had no choice. If we had shipped the CD version first, I think history might have been a little different.
Yeah, the CD version is quite a bit better.
Yeah, well, I just saw that comment and had to throw that in there. It wasn't like the team wanted to ship it on floppies. I mean, like it must have been on 7 floppies or some craziness like that. I don't know.
I think 9, right?
Yeah.
That kind of brings up another question that I had for you guys, which was, during this time, it was kind of like the age of doom, right? I mean, it was the 900-pound gorilla in the room, and you were creating an experience that was, from the first-person perspective, it was very similar, but, everything else is completely different. What was did you have a strategy back then on how to kind of differentiate yourself from that enough to garner, its own interest?
Well, sure. I mean, I think if you look at, the Origin, Blue Sky, Looking Glass game style, we were always after something different. I don't think there was anybody who even had any interest in making a game like Doom. Or Wolfenstein, Underworld shipped before Wolfenstein, so the first-person genre was kind of created by guys like Paul, and we always wanted to create what we called them immersive simulations, not shooters. Where there was nothing that dragged you out of the game world, that there was something more going on than just kill everything that moves. We wanted to empower players to tell their own story. That's what it's been about from the start, and what we've all been trying to do ever since.
Do you have any good examples of games that you feel, modern games, have taken a lot of pages out of your book when it comes to immersive sims and done it well?
The Arcane guys, I mean, clearly, that's like half of them worked on my old Ion Storm team. I think they're doing a terrific job. Beyond that, I think there are a lot of people doing things that are kind of kissing cousins of what we used to do. But I mean, if you look at Bethesda and the stuff that Peter Molyneux was doing, the BioWare guys, there are people who are doing things sort of like what we were doing, but I describe those as being simulated an inch deep and miles wide. And what we were trying to do was simulate smaller spaces, open worlds in corridors. So, simulated an inch wide and miles deep, which I can't speak for Tim and Paul, but I find that much more interesting than just letting you explore an enormous world where, every 10 minutes you're being reminded that you're just playing a game. I'm never going to work again. This is pretty cool.
You've been saying that for a long, long time, though, Warren.
That's true, but someday it's going to come true, and I'll look like a seer, No, I mean, how did you guys feel about it? You guys were you even thinking about Doom when you were working on System Shock? I mean, I sure wasn't. I could have cared less.
Yeah, not really. I mean, I remember we saw, the demo of it came out while we were still working on System Shock. I know James had some ideas about the lighting model they were using that was actually giving them some trouble at the time of the demo. But they were just trying to solve a very different set of problems in many ways.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting because it came out around the same time, and obviously Doom has its own legacy. But I've read a couple of books on the subject, and it seems like based on their original designs, they were almost kind of going for something more like System Shock. Like if Adrian Carmack had had his way, he would have added in a narrative element that was a lot stronger, ancillary characters that you could talk to or that you would learn backstory from, that kind of thing. So just the dynamic between the two has just always been very interesting to me. So
it's no big surprise that other companies have had trouble convincing people with money to let them do stuff like System Shock. I mean, I remember going to a product review meeting. Every quarter there was a product review meeting where all of the games in development were shown to executives, and I think it was June or July. Remember System Shock on the crummy floppy version shipped in September, and what was that, 94, I guess. And in June or July of that year, I went and showed System Shock to the executive team, and it almost got killed. People did not get it at all, and it took some arguing to keep it alive, and thank God they finally backed down. But it's tough to convince people to support a game that's part shooter, part survival horror, part role-playing game, unlike any role-playing game anybody's ever made, and frankly anybody makes today. It's a tough sell because the marketing people didn't know what to do with it. Whereas, blue door, go find blue key, kill blue monster, get blue key, open blue door. I mean, that's easy.
So that kind of brought up another question that just been kind of milling around for a while since we started working on this. Was there anything back then in '94 that you wanted to do in System Shock that the technology just wasn't capable of delivering?
Well, it sure wasn't moving starfields.
A curved surface would have been nice.
Maybe System Shock 3 will have some curved surfaces. Boy, I'm trying to remember. I mean, it had a haiku at the end. What more could you want?
actually, one huge thing, which is, I think maybe today you could do it, but the whole design of the character of Shodan, sprung out of kind of an aspirational thing that we knew, I think was not going to be realized in that form, but like the thing we were really aspiring to was the feeling that there was actually, an intelligent adversary agent, really acting against you and monitoring what you were doing. And I actually think these days that's probably a doable like game AI project.
And it might happen in some near future game. You never know.
Hint, hint. But like at the time, it was all smoke and mirrors, right? Like we, the use of the security cameras to give the sense of omnipresence to Shodan, the sort of design practice of playing cruel practical jokes on the player and blaming them on Shodan. Like all of that was just like these sort of tricks to achieve that some sense of that aspiration.
The interesting thing for me is I think the fact that everybody's dead is really wonderful and part of what makes System Shock. But Paul, I don't know if maybe your memory is different. I have a very vivid memory of you, me, and Doug Church in my office in Austin talking about two things came up. One was, oh my God, if I ever have to make another fantasy game again, I'm going to kill myself. That was one. And the other one was, we have no idea how to do a decent conversation system. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then somebody, I don't remember who it was, somebody came up with the idea, let's just kill everybody.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was both of those. And I think we're finally ready to do another fantasy game, but we're still talking about the unsolved problem of decent conversation systems.
And it's something that comes up pretty much every day here as we're working on System Shock 3 too. It's how true would it be to the System Shock universe if everybody wasn't dead?
I just really hope that there's some journalist watching this and it will be quoted, Warren Spector. I think the fact that everyone is dead is great.
Yeah, I think it's so baked into what System Shock is now. It's hard to imagine a System Shock where there's living humans around you. But it did feed into the whole horror genre that much more. So that was also a win. But yeah, we've been playing with conversation systems with the Underworld games and just not that happy with it. It felt contrived. And I'd argue that today conversation systems are still, no one's really solved them elegantly. It's still a somewhat contrived scheme.
We've made no progress since 1989, except we've attached a timer to a branching tree.
I think the text fonts are quite a bit nicer now.
Oh, that's true. That's true. And once again, I am drawn back to the word pathetic. Because of the state of conversations today.
Right. The other thing that I think, having moving to the, audio logs that you would find really fed into the sense of, you're as you're exploring the space, you feel as a player that you're piecing together the backstory, based on your actions and what you're doing. And that was just it felt very differently somehow than stumbling onto an NPC who just sort of spouted stuff to you.
It actually might be a little hard to explain to some of the newcomers to the game, right? Because it really was a very novel thing at the time, and yet like this notion of scavenging these audio logs has become such a trope since then. Like that's one of the things that like I think you can point straight back to System Shock, and for all the things that were not adopted, like that idea is like very commonplace now, to the point where I've seen it parodied and such, and it's kind of almost a challenge of like, I don't know, like maybe System Shock is the only game that like is still allowed to do that without being parodied. At least I hope we still. I hope that the well hasn't been poisoned for us if we have to like go back there. But
it's just hard to imagine System Shock without story elements coming to you out of order and forcing players to involve themselves in the story by piecing it together. It's very hard to imagine System Shock without that. But one of my favorite things in the first game was I wish I could remember the details. Given that I just played it, I should remember this. But there was one place where you actually heard from people who are still alive. You got a log from people who are still alive, and there was just this feeling of, oh my god, if I could just get to them in time, I can save them. And of course, you're too late,
Yeah.
And that was a really tragic moment for me.
Yeah, that's a trick we get to pull that once and probably never again.
Yeah, that one we're done with.
I still think that, I agree with what you're saying about the sort of the non-linear presentation of the story and piecing. You're sort of doing this archaeology on the station, right? But I sometimes feel like the story ends up still too coherent. Like someone should be watching more Rashomon before before working on this stuff, and people have these completely different perspectives and disagreements, and everyone's like, what the hell actually is going on?
I've always wanted to make a Rashomon game that's set in high school. That'd be the answer. A hush fell over the crowd.
So Rob, I have a question for Rob.
What's up?
I seem to recall a little while ago we were talking, and you mentioned because I was asking you about inspiration for the art style for the game, because I was looking for it for sound effects too. I know you mentioned a lot of sort of classic sci-fi movies. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, your artistic inspiration for the game?
Well, I guess in my mind, they're just sort of typical go-tos as far as, the original Alien, and that sort of thing. But I think at the time, the look, when I got there, the look was, there was some levels established, I think, for System Shock. And I think my first impression of it was, it was coming across to me very Star Trek, and more so in the beginning. And I think it sort of, we tried to, I do recall a lot of the levels were, in fact, all the textures were pristine, and looked, like sort of you were on the 60s, Star Trek ship. And then I remember Warren, actually was like, we need to we need to fuck up these textures. We need to they should look dirty or dinged, So we basically went back and started distressing all the textures, baking in, dings and rust and, wires being implied that they were sticking out of the wall and that sort of thing. And then that really started to, take on a life of its own as far as setting up the atmosphere. This place is just really sort of in shambles, as opposed to its former glory.
There were a bunch of pretty genius things that Tim and guys like him did on those levels. The feeling of being in a real place was pretty amazing. You could go into a room and kind of have a sense of what that room's purpose was. It wasn't just a collection of random spaces. I thought that was one of the things I loved about it. Also, that feeling of claustrophobia you got. Most shooters, they're big open spaces, with cover points and things above you and stuff, so you can get tactical advantages and everything. In System Shock, it was like I am running down a narrow corridor, and if I keep running and I run around that corner, something is going to kill me. There was this real sense of having to kind of slow down and be scared. which I thought was just amazing. I mean, that's one of the ways in which it's most unlike most shooters. It's not a game where you move forward like a shark, and eventually, if you keep doing that, you win. It's you really have to stop and think and listen and figure out where the threats are, and not go barreling around corners at top speed unless you're on those silly skates, which I always thought were dumb. But anyway.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the lessons that we learned about that style and that pacing on System Shock would later influence us on Thief, you know, in terms of like the power imbalance and the way that drives you towards a certain play style. I also think, you know, Rob's comment and your own, Warren, both sort of reminded me of a question I saw on the chat earlier about someone was asking like, oh, what's with all these discarded soda cans and the severed limbs and stuff, and you know that kind of serves like a couple of purposes. None of them like really functional in the game, except for like I'll leave a spoiler about one of the severed body parts. But you know.
Oh no, he's about to reveal a spoiler and dropped out.
And like many and more lived in, right? You know, like not everything in the world is there just for the player to interact with, which I think, you know, is part of making it feel, you know, a sense of like real presence and again, like it's a lived in space.
So what was the spoiler about the severed limb?
A severed body part, not a severed limb.
Oh, okay.
I think probably most people have had this spoiled for them already about 20 years ago, but I'm still going to be respectful.
Do you guys have any stories about how like cyberspace was conceived?
Poorly.
I guess like just, you know, maybe the inspiration behind it, or
well, sure. I mean, there was a lot of it was very much sort of in the times that, you know, at that time, like there was a lot of interest in cyberpunk, like, you know, and you have to remember as well, like this was like just at the dawn of like computers becoming like a real presence in everyday life. And so it's kind of natural that cyberpunk was coming along with that. I know a lot of that was Doug's influences. He was a big fan of some of the early cyberpunk literature. I think, gosh, I'm trying to remember my timeline. Was this game? No, this game must have been post Max Headroom, because I remember like Greg cited that as like one of the influences on Shodan's audio style, right?
Yeah.
So there was this like very particular like sort of vision of what it might be like to sort of navigate information in the future, and you know there were different versions of that, which I think you sort of. We ended up sort of synthesizing from, you know, a combination of those influences and what was actually technically possible. Like a lot of this, you know, springs from the limitations of the platform at the time, right? Like you can imagine going someplace with this other than that, like very clean polygonal look that's in cyberspace. But boy, that choice certainly made things a lot simpler for us.
Well, but it was also, I mean, was it the first freeform 3D space? It might
in
have
terms
been.
of like the fact that like you were sort of tumbling in 6 degrees of freedom and everything.
Yeah.
It might have. I mean, like in terms of like PC games, probably. I'm sure there were like arcade game predecessors and stuff.
I don't know, when did Descent come out?
Descent was definitely. I'm almost sure Descent was later.
Was it later?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
It was in that time frame, but it may have been a year or so.
But yeah, and you know, and so I mean, before that, like I mean, you can definitely point back at space games. Like we were all familiar with Wing Commander, and Paul had done Space Rogue, right? So in terms of like moving through the space, there was that familiar point of reference. But but the visual like marrying that with a particular visual design. I think that visual design came out of a lot of stuff that was in like genre fiction back in the 90s.
Yeah, I just wish it had been a little less shootery.
Sure.
I mean, it still felt like it felt in fact more like you were playing a shooter than most parts of the game.
Right. Well, I mean, I think there was an earlier question about what weren't we able to do as well as we wanted to, or get far enough along on the original System Shock. And I think cyberspace didn't fully flesh out the way we intended.
Yeah, I think everyone had aspirations to develop that more fully than we did.
Yeah.
If you could go back to it now, what would you do differently? How would you have the player interact with that space and that that particular mechanic of the game?
If I told you, I'd have to kill you.
Because we're trying to figure it out too.
Hey, don't be stealing my thunder, pal.
Well, I mean, I will say, like, the thing that's fundamentally, like, very limited about cyberspace in the original System Shock 1, right? Like, it really is all moving and shooting, mostly moving. It's primarily just a flying game, right? So, there like, any kinds of interactions with the environment around you that are at all richer than just, like, flying through things and pointing at them. Like, the options are really wide open as far as that goes. You could do a lot with it.
My mouth is shut.
Yeah, I know. Like, I haven't already had these conversations with Warren, so I know I can't spoil anything. But yeah.
How about that elevator music, huh?
Have you heard the version that we've done of the elevator music?
No, but it's coming back for System Shock 3. That's a must.
You gotta
Showdown, Citadel Station, and the elevator music.
I think
the elevator maybe music, even not updated.
I think the elevator music is half the reason that I pulled that trick where, like, you open the elevator and there's a robot warrior, like, waiting for you. Like, first we train you to get completely complacent about the elevators, and then we screw you for it. Whereby we, I mean, I did that.
Yeah, John. When this is done, you have to make sure to send them your version of the elevator music.
Yeah, sounds good.
I don't know. I basically just love the music. I won't say the audio necessarily, but I love the music in System Shock 1 to this day. Yeah, obviously it's primitive, and we can do better in terms of fidelity, but that music, I mean, just captured cyberpunk so perfectly for me at the time, and it still works. It's kind of crazy. Or not.
Yeah. No, I that's totally legit. And it's hard to, it's one of those things that, due to the like what audio hardware let us do at the time, it doesn't necessarily age well, right? You have to hear it in the context of, like, what was even possible, right? And it's one of those things that, like graphics can be hard to get a sense of how it compared to state of the art at the time, right? But yeah, was this Greg's work, or who did the music? I forget now. I think it was Greg LaPiccolo, right?
Yeah.
The fans can probably verify.
They know more about these games than we do.
Yeah.
Yep, they're confirming.
There you go.
Daniel, how many times have you played through the original System Shock?
Too many. Too many, that's healthy.
No such thing.
I was going to say, I'm really enjoying watching you play through this. You're just cranking through it. It's like you've done it before.
maybe this guy will be your friend. No. It doesn't actually matter what part of the game you're at. I can say maybe this guy will be your friend, and it'll be false.
I have to say, playing through it today, I probably shouldn't say this, but as I was playing, I was emailing back and forth with Doug Church, and I sent him an email. The first one was, "Oh my God, this game is hard," and his response was 1994. And then my next email was, "Oh my God, this game is big," and his response was 1994. And then my response was, "Oh my God, what were we thinking with this UI?" You can. I'll let you fill in what his response was. But I don't think. In fact, I know I hadn't played the game since probably 1995, and it was eye-opening. It was very much a "what were we thinking" kind of experience. So I'm very happy to see you guys doing what you're doing with it.
Were you using the version that had the mouse look mod, or were you going?
Yes.
Classic mode.
No. Mouse look didn't help.
Yeah, it's hard for me to play this game anymore without.
It looks like we have somebody in the channel. Alexander Brandon is joining us. Hey, Alex.
Alex, say something.
Well, it's delayed by 20 seconds, so he'll get around to it hopefully.
Okay.
Do you guys see anything that's going on in the level that brings up memories or anything in particular you guys want to talk about?
Nothing's moving in the video for me, so the answer is no.
I'm noticing the omnipresent, or at least the screens. It's hard. It's actually hard to tell at the pixel resolution that System Shock was at, but those screens of Edward Diego's face. Of course, all the people, practically all the people in the game were actually like employees at LucasArts, right? So the face of Edward Diego was co-founder Ned Lerner, and I think the voice was Austin Grossman, something like that.
So you probably can't say, but has Austin signed on with you guys yet? You guys out? Any capacity?
I think Austin's pretty busy at Magic Leap these days.
Yeah, last I heard.
Yeah, I think on System Shock 3 I'll be peppering him with documents and questions and all, but it's all going to be, I suspect, on a volunteer basis.
So is there anything that you guys can share with us about System Shock 3, or is that pretty much
well, at this point there's not much to share, right? I mean, until a week and a half ago it was me alone in the room. And now it's four of us, so we're having lots of brainstorming sessions about what about the setting, the game systems, what we want to update, what we want to do that's new. I have a rule on any game I work on that you have to be able to answer the question, what's the one new thing? What's the thing that no one in the world's ever seen or done in a game before? So we're kind of hammering that out, figuring out where we want to take our risks. Going through forums to see what people liked and didn't like about the old games. I mean, not that the audience is going to design the game, but it's always good to know what people think. We're trying to figure out what prototypes we're going to build, what are the most important things we need to do. Because I mean, we're starting with there's a great deal of fiction set up in System Shock, and System Shock 2 clearly set up a lot of sequel possibilities, let's just say. But we are really starting with an empty hard drive and empty heads in the best possible way. So there isn't a lot to say. I think I've said pretty much everything I want to say in saying that Showdown will appear, Citadel Station will appear in some form, and the elevator music is damn well going to be there. And there will be a hidden basketball court.
Yay!
Always has to be the basketball.
Always has to have a basketball court.
I have to say, I was disappointed. They put a basketball in Fallout 4, which was very sweet of them, but it's not bouncy enough. It's nothing more disappointing than a flaccid basketball.
Try it in Disney Epic Mickey.
I think it took me like 45 minutes to make a basket in Deus Ex Human Revolution.
I had nothing to do with that. Oh, and 451 will appear somewhere.
Oh yeah, of course.
And that started with System Shock 2, and now it's like every game that comes out of that tradition has to include 451. You know? And it's funny. I mean, this is not directly System Shock related, but I remember Paul mentioned, when Looking Glass went out of business, obviously that was a sad moment, and there was a lot of Sturm und Drang in the game development community and in the game playing community. But I have to admit, there was a little part of me that actually thought, this is going to be a good thing, because instead of one studio embodying this incredible game style, that everybody from Looking Glass was going to scatter. It's going to be like a dandelion in the wind, And all of these.
Or another analogy might be kind of like Shodan going out and infecting many.
But now you do see more people trying to do the kinds of things that Looking Glass was doing, and I'll let other people decide how well they're doing it, but there's there are people from Looking Glass at Bethesda now, and obviously Irrational, and they're just Ion Storm and Junction Point, and we're all over the place, and that might be more impactful than one company making amazing, innovative games.
Well, and it's surprising to me how many of us are still like very active in the industry, and of course, most people who are, unless they took some significant hiatus, are either very senior people in their companies, or like some of us are in a position from their prior experience where like we can do this interesting indie stuff, right? And this industry, like it's remarkable at lots of companies if you last 5 years before you decide to get out of the whole industry, right? But on the whole, the Looking Glass diaspora has really been pretty persistent.
Well, it's like I always say, what else am I qualified to do?
Getting distracted watching game.
Well, I have a list of questions I can go through for folks.
Here's another thing. Okay, so this is another one. Paul and Tim, check me on this, because I have a very vivid memory that I've probably completely imagined. But I remember Doug was down here. Doug Church was down here in Austin at one point, and we were at the Texas Chili Parlor. I can still remember exactly what table we sat at, and we started. We were just like leaning on one arm, and just said, "Why haven't you ever been able to do that in a game?" And I don't know if that's where the idea of leaning came from, or if it was just something that was already in Doug's head because you guys had talked about it, or what. But that's my memory, is that's where the lean came from. We were eating really spicy chili, and lamenting the sad state of first-person shooters at the time.
It's a good a story as any. I mean, they were certainly, and I don't know whether it was after that or before that, there was discussion because we were trying to create these claustrophobic environments of tight, twisty, corridors. And so it seemed natural to be able to kind of lean around corners and, sneak peeks and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember also I remember clearly having discussions like way back on Underworld about the fact that in Underworld you could look up and down, which like no other game could do, and it actually mattered because the floor wasn't all at the same level, and there was like very little done with what the possibilities of the camera were, and certainly like the leaning and crouching stuff in System Shock does so much more with just camera motion to give you a sense of having a body. I can't help but think that like that thread of discussion that we had a lot to do with going that direction.
Yeah, presence before VR was invented.
Hey, and I mean, a lot of people don't remember, we fully supported the CyberMax and Forte VFX1 VR headsets.
And those were awesome pieces of hardware.
Oh my God. Well, hey, we also supported them in Wings of Glory, a flight sim I did around the same time. And there was one time I went down into the QA and the lead tester was testing Wings of Glory. And we had to yank, I won't say which one, but we had to yank one of them off his head because it was on fire. But the thing was, you could play through all of System Shock in VR, except the resolution was so low you couldn't read any of the text. And I mean, like none of the UI text, nothing. And so it kind of made it a suboptimal experience.
Oh yeah, I mean those headsets were so primitive, but there was just like there's so many rounds of like people like trying to make it like time for VR to happen before this latest round where it looks like it might actually do. Hey, did I ever tell you like the about like later I would meet Karthik Bala, who I would work for at Vicarious Visions. He and his brother were the co-founders of that company, and I didn't remember this, but like back on System Shock, like at that time he was an intern for like VFX, I think it was. It might have been one of the other people, but like so like he was actually working with Doug on those headset ports for System Shock.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, that was a good way to get sick too. 20 plus hours of gameplay with a VR headset on your head. Even today there are people who think that's the right answer. I'm not sure I agree with you.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a solved problem.
No. So did someone say they had questions?
Oh, just when you guys run out of things to talk about, I have a list of questions to kind of ignite more commentary, and also questions from the Twitch stream. One of the questions is, so Warren, you were a producer on System Shock, but have done so much more in the industry. From System Shock days, working as a producer, how would you describe your transition into taking on more roles, and just how has that journey been, and also how's that interaction been just through Looking Glass in general?
Well, it's funny. I always tell people don't model your career after mine, because I was lucky enough to get into the business. I mean, I started in electronic games in 1989, and nowadays roles are very clearly defined. I mean, producers do a certain thing, and non-producers do other things. But at the time, I was able to carve out a space of being a creative producer, where I always had input into the creative on the projects that I was working on. So there hasn't been that much of a transition, other than in my previous life, there was always someone else who had one more vote than me. And now I'm the guy with one more vote than everybody on the project all combined. So that's kind of the biggest transition. Often it's like I can't say that System Shock was my vision or Underworld was my vision. That would be obscene of me to claim that. But I've gotten to the point where the projects that I work on, I don't even do real work on them. All I do is say, here's the game we're making, guys, go. But that's been a big change. That I'm the instigator, I guess, of various games. That's been the biggest thing. But everybody at Looking Glass, I mean, it was, okay. Here's the thing about Looking Glass and Blue Sky. There's a guy named Warren Bennis who's a management professor and studier, and he has this idea that he calls the Great Group, which is a group of people all united by a singular vision. They have their own language, like salt the fries and probbing and scuffing your coat. They have their own language. They dress a certain way. They have a very distinct culture. They have us versus them kind of mentality in a good way. And Blue Sky and Looking Glass had that kind of mentality. And once you've been a part of something like that, it's hard to go back. I've been lucky enough to be a part of that kind of experience twice, and the System Shock team was one of them. I mean, that team was. I mean, they're every game and every team is full of strife and people arguing and everything, but there was a feeling at Looking Glass that and it was true at Origin too, where there was this feeling that we were going to change the world, and why doesn't everybody make games like this? And that was really special. I'll tell you just one more story, and then I'll shut up. The first time,
show.
well, I was working with the Underworld team, and they worked most of the time, until the end, out of one house, right? They called Deco Morona, the House of 10 Dumb Guys. And I'll never forget the first time I walked into that house and realized that I was the stupidest person in the room. and it was such a great feeling. I mean, it was really amazing being a part of that, and that's part of what made Looking Glass so special. It was everybody was really freaking smart and wanted to change the world. Which didn't answer your question at all, I realize, but tough.
I'll deal with it. So Paul and Tim, similar question. So from a design standpoint, how have you found that changing over the years in the industry and just on both of your roads through it? And feel free to attack it in any order since you both are on the same microphone.
Well, for me, probably it's not really a big transition because it's been having an independent studio, Looking Glass, at least for most of its time, certainly when we were making System Shock, was an independent studio. So, my role was more about trying to, get a new project going, pull together, a team that was the right team for it and cohesive and had a vision, and kind of getting out of their way for the most part. And at some level that hasn't changed. Now at other side. So
I think Paul, you're selling yourself a little short.
Yeah, but I didn't go through a transition. When I started in the games industry, I was doing games on my own pretty much, where I was trying to pretend I was an artist, even though I had no talent as an artist, and doing the engineering and the design, and that worked okay in the 1980s. But as the industry started to grow, it grew beyond certainly my skills to do a game, and it became clear that we needed to have a team to do the kind of games that we wanted to do. So that was really the major transition that I went through from being a solo indie game developer to having a studio and finding really talented people to make the games.
Cool.
I'm trying to think about I don't know. I'm not even sure if I'm answering the question, but I guess it doesn't matter. For me, the interesting thing looking back, from Looking Glass through where I've been since to here, the places I've been at have been very different, and each of them is like really, I think, I've been looking for different things at different places, and they've added different things, right? Like Looking Glass, like I really have to agree with Warren. There was so much like just like general concordance of like what our mission was, and also just like real genius in the room, like a tremendously talented group of people. At the same time, like I think it probably wasn't unique to Looking Glass at the time, because like this was in the 90s, and the industry is still kind of in its infancy and trying to figure out like what the roles even were and what the processes should be. And so after Looking Glass folded, I was like really looking for answers to those questions, and ending up at Vicarious Visions, which at the time it was like this small independent studio that like mainly did like Game Boy Advance games actually, and would later like grow tremendously and become one of the larger Activision subsidiaries. They're still active, and they're doing every other year's Skylanders game. But the thing that like was they really had going for them, and I can only take from the results they get that they still do, is craft. I mean that is like such a button down shop where like they are disciplined, and they go back and like really understand their process and like what happened on each project. And so like that sense of process and craftsmanship like was something that was like really only developing in the industry, and that I really felt like I got from them. But then like after that going to Harmonix, which again like such a talented group of people, but like not in the things that like I was really familiar with. Working on music games there, I really had to stretch myself, and so like every place I've been has sort of added something like really distinct on my sort of journey.
Yeah, the one thing I'll tell you never want to do is grow your studio to 200 people internally and have 800 people working on a project. That was Disney Epic Mickey 2 for me. And
Yeah.
when you're doing something like that, you get so far from the project and from the team that it really wasn't much fun for me. So I mean that's one of the reasons why when Junction Point shut down, I went and did some teaching for 3 years just to clear my head. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so excited now to be part of Other Side, working on System Shock 3, because we're not going to get that big, and I'm not going to get that far from the project ever again. So you ask how things have changed over time. I went from being a creative producer ultimately to being someone who basically just runs the studio, and that's not as much fun. So System Shock 3 is already more fun than I've had in years.
It's great. It's good that you can go back to that.
Well, I owe that to Paul. I mean, he told me one day that he had the rights to make a System Shock 3 game, and I half jokingly said, "Hey, I should make that for you." And about 2 weeks later, he called me back and said, "You should make that for me." And the rest is, well, the beginning of history, I guess.
Yeah,
Any other questions?
I was gonna say, when I initially started talking with Star back in the end of 2012, there was this little glimmer of hope that I had that one day we'd all be discussing this. So it's good to hear that you guys feel the same way, but your general excitement and enthusiasm for revisiting this franchise and just kind of picking up where you left off.
Well, and the amazing thing is that people still remember and care. I felt that way when Deus Ex hit its 15th anniversary, and I think I did more press on its 15th anniversary than I did when the game came out. And it's kind of the same thing with System Shock. It's like people still remember and care. And Underworld, same thing. How many games do people still care about from that long ago? Like the answer is like none. So we're really lucky.
I know, right? I can't account for it. That might just be my imposter syndrome kicking in, though.
You worked on something really special, Tim.
Oh, you guys, group hug.
I have feels. Major feels.
We've seen this in other media. I mean, the original, Lord of the Rings books. It took a while before they really caught on broadly. They're out there for 20 years, something like that. Their Star Trek series, the original one had a 3-year,
they didn't make their 5-year mission.
They didn't make their 5-year mission, and I think at the time, probably most of the world didn't really notice it going. So I think there's just certain in entertainment, there's certain stories, characters, whatever it is that somehow stick, but you don't necessarily realize it when they first come out. It's only some years later that sort of they get the momentum. It's cool when it happens.
Yeah, I guess the thing for me and Steven on the reverse side of it is, we grew up playing these games, and now we're working on one, and that in itself is mind-blowing. And now we're chatting with you guys about it and collaborating. Steven, how does that feel from your perspective?
I don't know if there's a word to describe it. Otherworldly.
How about othersidely?
Okay, there it is. It's just crazy. This is totally gonna date me, but I remember, the day that I was in middle school and one of my friends came in and handed me the box to System Shock and said, "Hey, you have to play this. This is incredible." And then going home that night and basically playing, for 12 hours straight, and experiencing it for the first time, and then, being where I am now. Without sounding too sappy, it's a dream come true.
Well, no one told you couldn't do it?
No, I guess not.
Any chance of a System Shock crossover with any other Nightdive properties? I probably shouldn't say this, but it has occurred to me that one of the things about systems that I love is that you could play little mini games in your MFD, like Wing Commander Zero and stuff. I've been thinking I should put Underworld Ascendant Zero in System Shock 3 so you can play a little mini version of it.
You thought about that too, huh?
I think that's the only crossover that's gonna happen though. Someone suggested doing a crossover with System Shock and Epic Mickey, but that just makes me cry.
Yeah, if either of us could ever talk about working with Disney again, I'm sure we would have some interesting stories to share about that.
There could be some interesting similarities in some ways between Epic Mickey and System Shock 3. You never know. He said mysteriously.
Nice. Like the musical number.
No, that will not be one of them.
I loved the musical number, by the way. That was good.
It was kind of a test run for what I wanted to do in Epic Mickey 3, which would have been spectacular, but didn't happen. Oh well.
People do not appreciate how Disney Animation single-handedly kept the movie musical alive for decades.
It's true. It's true. How did we get off on this?
I have no idea.
We had Shodan use some kind of modular voice tool so that she sounded like Mickey, right? Like, hi, insects, haha!
Why would you want to try to get me sued? That hardly seems fair. Although we could make her sound like NG Resonance from Invisible War, I guess. Okay, nobody remembers NG Resonance from Invisible War.
That's a deep cut.
I will go cry in a corner.
Now, somewhere somewhere on the internet that's somebody's favorite thing, because that's the nature of the internet.
Oh, man.
You just need to find them.
Yeah, the one. You're the one.
I think Daniel, you just went through a playthrough of Invisible War, didn't you?
Not recently, no. A few months ago, I did. Yeah.
Did anybody actually play Invisible War?
Yeah,
I liked Invisible War except for the UI.
Let's talk about System Shock.
Yeah.
Aww.
And
He never meant to hurt you, Warren.
well, and yes, Captain Raven, Invisible War wasn't so bad. That's true. I think it is a dramatically underrated game. And I could talk about that for days, but I won't, because we're here to talk about something else. Some other time, I'll do a Reddit, an Invisible War Reddit thing or something.
I'll go down my list of System Shock questions for people. So regarding Shodan, and this can be answered by you guys in whatever order you like. What are the most interesting qualities you find about Shodan? And over the years since System Shock 1 has shipped, how has Shodan entered into your lives, your thoughts, or even what fans have done? And what has just clung to your, basically, I guess, just what's sort of stuck in all the years?
Oh, gosh. Should I? I don't know.
Nightmares are an acceptable answer.
Like, I mean, one thing is just like, it's a combination of the writing and Terry's portrayal of her, but you know, there's this big risk with that kind of character, that you just get reduced to like, oh, I'm evil because I'm evil. I hate puppies and music and fun. But like Terry pulls it off as like such a convincing megalomaniac, right? Like we're like, okay, so you're always nattering on about how superior you are, but if you really felt so superior, you wouldn't always be nattering on about it, right? Like, what is it with you, Shodan? And like, I just really feel like she brings like this sort of really, really believable, like that one defining quality of Shodan like needs that piece of nuance to not fall flat. And I think it was just brilliantly done.
And she was an intelligent villain, you know. She wasn't just some raving lunatic. There was some real intelligence there. You know, actually not just to Shodan, but to the entire game. There was intelligence is the only word I can think of. That's really inspirational, and you know that comes down to writing and acting and believability of the entire game. You know, she was the essence of cyberpunk at that time. So intelligence is the word for me. That's what I've taken from her, and what I hope my teams and I have been able to do in the games that have come since, and I hope we can do in System Shock 3.
Yeah, and you know the funny thing.
Oh no, he cut out. What's the funny thing?
Maybe might know Terry from her portrayal of Victoria in Thief, right? Like unlike either of those characters, Terry is just like the sweetest person in the world. You would never guess it.
It's true. It's true.
She is just wonderful. So, yeah, it is acting, even if it doesn't sound like it.
Continuing on with Shodan stuff, what redeeming qualities, or in general, what would you find is relatable with Shodan? And there's some feedback on somebody.
Well, she's got an emotional side. She's not just cold and you know, unemotional. She actually responds to you in a way that you would expect an AI like her to react. You know.
Yeah, I'd add to that. You know, this has a lot to do with Greg's sound design and you know, it's not just. I mean, part of it is like how we like are kind of like faking you out a little bit in the game, but the progression from early in the game when she comes across fairly normal as just like the voice of the computer on the station, and then like that glitchiness like starts and proceeds and just like snowballs, and you really get the sense of from that, or at least I do, right? Like at how this is like such a damaged character, right? And like that's really relatable and sympathetic to me, right? Like even if the result of it is kind of horrifying, right? You know, it's like this was all like put into motion not by her originally, right? Like this was like this weird plot of Edward Diego's that like caused her to get like this bad code injected that just like irrevocably damaged her. And I find that like, you know, kind of I don't know. It's very humanizing to me.
Actually, you know, it's funny. I never thought about this until just this minute, but Showdown really does have a character arc too. You know, she's not just the same. She's not the same at the end as she was at the beginning. It's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to think about that a lot now. Wait a minute.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like it when we get you thinking.
Oh, you say that now.
I trust you.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, here come the feels again.
You just passed my head back there. That's me on the ground there.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, I did heads for everyone. I had pretty long hair back then.
Yeah, I remember.
God, I'm really bummed I can't see anything moving. The video has not progressed one frame since I started.
You're missing out.
Do you have it paused maybe, or try refreshing the Twitch page?
Still no movement. It's in a different place now. Don't worry about it. That's the least of our problems.
So some of them might be
the most of our problems. Sorry, the most of our problems.
Do you guys have any stories about what Shodan could have been, or what it was like coming up with her initial concept, and what else she could have been, and how you guys reached the decision to, I guess, make Shodan the character function and feel and act the way she is now?
Ooh. Wow.
Yeah, I have no memory of that at all.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of that was Austin and Doug too, so it's a little hard for me to speak to that. You know, I mentioned some of like the early ideas we were throwing around about, you know, just how the idea of having like a sort of mastermind as a you know AI adversary in the game, and you know I think part of how Shodan ended up being who she was those design compromises that we had to adopt to work around the limitations of you know what was actually possible in terms of meeting that aspiration. You know, like I mentioned before, like design practice where like, you know, so much of System Shock is just designers playing cruel practical jokes on the player and then blaming them on Shodan, because better that you hate her than you hate us for having to mess with you. And I think part of that is like there is that kind of like that kind of trickster aspect to her personality came out of that practice, and partly I think out of just my own and Dorian's competition internally to like one-upsmanship in the practical jokes, right? Which is a very Dorian. I claim that Dorian drove me to that because it's more characteristic of him than me. But so yeah, I think it was a combination of like I hadn't thought before very deeply about like how the writing decisions and those level design decisions influenced each other in developing our character. But I definitely think there's something there.
Steven, do you have questions?
I'm watching Daniel face off against these cyborgs.
He's really
here.
good at this game. Can you just tell us what you're doing?
It's mesmerizing.
Daniel, describe this level and how you got to be so amazing at this game.
I just love the game so much. It has pretty much everything that I like in a game, which is surprising because I'm quite picky sometimes with what I really like for games, but this just seems to have it all. System Shock 2 even more so. But this one is just... every time I play it, I always find something new. I think I actually found, while I'm playing this, an audio log that I've never found before. So it's...
Hey, let me ask you a question. What was it about System Shock 2 that was more so?
I think the RPG elements.
Need to know.
Honestly, I think the RPG elements and how you built your character. Some of the RPG trees didn't really go anywhere, but some of them are just really cool. And you had just the right amount of cyber modules to really have to think about where you designate your skills. So that was something that I really liked in System Shock 2. And the story. The story is it's just so good.
It's interesting because in System Shock 1, it was a pretty conscious decision not to have that kind of RPG element. That it was about the player in the world. Look at you, hacker, right? You don't have a name. You're defined by your skill as a player and by the objects you find and how you use them to solve problems. It's interesting that that's the thing you would single out because it's probably the biggest single change between the two games, and I am wrestling with that right now, and that is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I actually hadn't thought about there's, while on the one hand a lot of people discount the role of equipment in RPG progression, and obviously like System Shock, like that's the whole RPG progression. At the same time, like there's a very, very different aesthetic that's achieved by that, right? Where certainly until you like have the the walkthrough or whatever that is leading you to like seek out certain pieces of gear and make these sort of customizing decisions on that basis, it can lead to a gameplay experience that's much less planned and maybe less expressive in some sense for that reason, but also maybe more improvisational. I'm not sure.
Because I've never really thought of System Shock 1 as an RPG. Some people do call it an RPG, but I consider it more of kind of an adventure game with shooting elements. It's sort of a high-level adventure game, in my opinion.
It's definitely like a legit definitional problem.
And flummoxing marketing people is always a good thing to do. I wasn't joking.
No, I understand.
So my next set of questions are actually not exactly questions. It's more for other side people and Warren and everybody else. Do you guys have questions for people at Nightdive about stuff that we're doing or things that you're curious about, or just stuff that you want us to keep on our radar that we can basically make a true remake or reboot to this original thing that you guys helped bring to life?
Well, I am curious about how much you're planning to change beyond graphics, audio, and UI. I mean, the game is what the game is, and like I said when we started this, if you did nothing more than that, you would have a state-of-the-art game that would blow people away. Are you planning bigger changes than that? Are you going to introduce, System Shock 2 RPG elements, for example, or anything like that?
Well, I know you have that stretch goal that looks like it might be pretty attainable at this point, where there'd be some additional story content added, which might, I don't know, like there's that leaves you with the interesting problem of really grokking like what is it that makes a System Shock level, right? And I'd love to talk with you guys at some point about that, assuming that you end up with that problem to solve.
Yeah, it's going to be like this really fine line that we're going to balance between, obviously maintaining this original vision as faithfully as possible, and while adding something a little unique, like a touch from our own kind of, from our own resources. And to answer your question in terms of like the story elements, what I had kind of envisioned was just seeing this as an opportunity to maybe explore some of the crew members a little more intimately. Like for instance, in System Shock 2, you find a lot of logs of people discussing their kind of personal issues, their mundane day-to-day activities, and kind of exploring that element a bit more, just to provide maybe even more depth to Citadel Station and the people that lived on there, and maybe bring more of a human element into what happened and making it even more tragic.
Yeah, sure.
So that's one of the things that I was kind of looking forward to. It wouldn't be like changing the narrative or the pacing of the story, really. It would just be, hey, we have this opportunity to get more into the guts of what happened, and exploring that a bit more. And in terms of the RPG elements, I think Jason, feel free to hop in on this. But it wouldn't be. Yeah, it wouldn't be so much introducing or trying to introduce things from Shock 2 into Shock 1, which we kind of done with the interface. It would be kind of enabling the player a more organic approach towards building a character, where it's not stat driven specifically. It's here are some tools, here are some mechanics. Take what you like, that you're most comfortable with, and you'll be able to find a play style that you're comfortable with. And by doing that, we hope that every player is going to have a very unique experience of how they approach certain problems in the game. I mean, if I could equate it to anything, it would be maybe like what Harvey Smith and his team at Arcane did with Dishonored, where they've given the player a lot of these abilities and these skills, and depending on who you are, you approach a scenario or an objective differently based on which better suits your personal playstyle.
Yeah, hey, my motto's been playstyle matters for about a decade and a half. So every player having a unique experience based on their personal preferences is a pretty nice thing to do in a game. You might see some of that in System Shock 3 too.
Oh yeah, I love that. Oh wow, I totally forgotten. I just realized as you're running around with the laser rapier. Okay, I'm just gonna go back to like an old story now. So forgive me, but
That's what we're here for.
If you notice when you go to the weapons, like each of them has this like little serial number that's always like, it's like 2 letters, and then so like the TS-04 laser rapier. TS is Tim Stelmach and the TS-04 laser rapier. Like all those serial numbers are like for different members of the team. Like the pistol, the ML whatever is for Marc LeBlanc, and yeah. So
something else you didn't tell the producer.
The dart gun is Sarah Varelli, I think, SV. So the spark beam doesn't have a. Oh, and I think the mag pulse must be Sean Barrett. Yeah.
You learn something new every day. 22 years later.
We never told you that.
You never told me that.
Names in the game.
Nope. Never told me.
Well, now you know.
There you go.
Wow, I'd forgotten that, and now I'm glad that I ended up with the most awesome weapon in the game.
Are there any other Easter eggs like that we may not know about?
Well, Rob mentioned the severed heads, right? Where those are all.
So whose head is that?
Different team members.
I don't know if Dan's gonna be able to. There's a slight delay, but there's a severed head in that room he was just in.
Yeah, it was.
That was one of the playtesters.
Okay, all right.
I can't remember.
I can't believe you remember that after all these years.
Yeah. I had to take his word for it.
Oh man, look at it in the inventory. That's pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
So, Steven, is this something that we're going to be carrying over from the first game, putting all of our heads decapitated and disgusting in there?
I think it's got to be done.
Yeah, I'll be disappointed if you don't.
always wanted to be a severed head.
The Tim, you're talking about the positioning little icon up there in the HUD.
Yeah.
That's one little Easter egg that I wanted to. Oh, there's Doug Church. That's Doug Church's head.
Yeah, when he had hair.
Or no, that's
Oh no, that looks like.
That was cruel. Damn. Oh man.
Anyway, that icon up there, as far as your crouching and leaning positions and whatnot, I sort of remade that graphic to put on one of the screen displays. So it's just sort of like a little Easter egg that some people will recognize as a way to keep that.
I probably shouldn't tell this story, but there was around the same time I was working with the Looking Glass guys on System Shock. I was working with another developer on a game called Cybermage, and they were both sort of futuristic first-person games. And let's just say I liked System Shock. But I took them both to a trade show, and I remember watching like grown adult gamers playing System Shock and getting themselves stuck in a corner, crouched, leaning, with no way to get out of the corner because the UI was a little inelegant. And then I turned around and I watched. It couldn't have been more than 8 years old. An 8-year-old kid reaching up for the joystick to play Cybermage, which just, I mean, all due respect to the people who made that game, but it wasn't happening to me. And just running around, having a good time, shooting stuff and everything, and I just about.
You wept openly, admit it.
I did. It was no, come over here and play this one.
Cybermage.
I hadn't thought about Cybermage in a long time.
The game where you wear the dishwashing glove in your hand. Just look it up.
All right, I don't remember anything about that.
Your hand looked like you were wearing a dishwashing glove. That's all we're going to say about Cybermage. I've already probably lost a friend over it.
Oh, I see a comment in the chat. I find the maintenance a little horrifying to go through. Yeah, well, that's one of Dorian's levels, I think, if I remember correctly. So he was a right rat bastard about a lot of this stuff.
Damn those respawning blobs. Yeah, the respawn can be kind of deadly in System Shock, that's for sure. It's also so predictive. If I remember correctly, it was all driven by how many things you killed. So you could actually like count down how many things you had killed to avoid respawning stuff.
Wow, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, you could actually say, okay, as long as I don't kill one more, repair bot, the repair bots won't respawn.
Right. Now I have this clear mental picture of like getting yourself in trouble with the one guy you know you must not kill.
Yep. There was when I played, there was a lot of avoidance going on.
Wow.
Well, I got to tell you, my laptop is about to run out of power. So if anybody has any questions, ask them.
Yeah. How long have we been? We've been going a while. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, according to the schedule, you guys are welcome to drop out whenever you want or stick around. We're going to be closing the stream at 4 p.m. Pacific, so in 40 minutes. But I mean, you guys were only slotted in for an hour and a half, and the amount of time you guys have put in already has been incredibly awesome.
Actually,
so,
Paul did.
By all means, if you need to go.
So just so you know that.
Well, I probably have 10 more minutes of battery power. So I'm going to drop off whether I like it or not at some point very soon. Now, if there are more questions, I mean, I'll stick around until literally I run out of power. But if not, I'm gonna say goodnight.
All the questions I have are kind of lengthy ones, so I'd much rather just turn the floor over to you and just have you talk about whatever you feel like talking about. Tell us stories.
Well, okay. So one other thing I love about Shock is that one of the toughest problems in gaming, other than third-person camera, and that's all we're going to talk about. That is player direction, and both System Shock games actually, but especially System Shock 1, it's like the levels were color coded, right? I mean, if you were on the medical deck, it was like mostly blue, if I remember, and there was the executive level was mostly gold, so you always kind of knew where you were based on the color coding of the level, which I thought was really clever.
Yeah, there was.
But
I remember that.
It also could have been a bit of a happy mistake. I mean, there was definitely some thought into it, but I always look back at these texture sets and just cringe because I mean, it was, we as the art team, I just remember pretty much doing whatever the hell we wanted to do as far as producing the textures and whatnot, and there just was like I don't even think we amongst each other like critiqued each other's stuff. Well, maybe a little bit, but it's just like, oh, you just did a red texture, okay, great, and I guess we'll try to fit that in with the blue, and and then it wasn't even the artists that implemented them, it was the designers just like kind of painted the spaces with them. So
Yeah, I remember that as being a lot of that was on us, like just like sort of like to put together a look for like the art direction was it was all at the sort of like the raw materials level, right? Like here's the texture set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the doors stood out. I mean, I don't know. I still find it surprisingly appealing, I guess, the look of the game. It's very odd.
This kind of gets back too to like what I was saying before about like how little we knew comparatively at the time about like what the procedure should be for doing one of these projects, right? So yeah, in terms of art direction, that's just one example of like things that everyone was kind of making it up as they went along to some extent about like how we should even go about it. It was a very different time.
Yeah, and just look at all of those characters, the enemies. When I that's the thing I look back on and go, oh my gosh, we should have done better, in both System Shock 1 and System Shock 2. The characters could have used some work. Not in terms of their design, in terms of what we were able to do with them at the time.
Yeah, I understood that. Though I think you hurt Rob's feelings because he's.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to qualify it. It was not the designs that were the problem. It was our ability to execute against the designs. That was. No,
I would. To be serious though, like I would still hold up a lot of these concepts against the best ones that I've ever seen. Like
absolutely.
I still think there's at the time, again, it was just like whatever the heck we wanted to come up with, and whatever personal inspirations we were drawing from.
Some of your concept art is framed and was on my wall for years and is now in a museum.
Really?
Yeah.
What museum?
In Austin, Texas. The Center for American History has some of your concept art. Your character.
Oh wow! I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. So, and so how we, we built these things and then just had to, render them off as sprites and whatnot, and and then here and there did a little bit of touch up on them and in pixel paint and whatnot. But yeah, I actually remember a time where there was a debate on if we should alias them or not, and remember a bunch of the robots were done without aliasing, and they just looked, in my mind, they just looked terrible, you know, like, because they were just so chunky, so pixelated, and, you know, without that sort of aliasing to black, you know, to at least sort of define them, you were really, you know, it was a really stretch to call anything, you know, a character, or, you know, like you just couldn't really decipher it. So I think, and again, it was just like, I remember Mike at the time was doing the robots without the aliasing, and then at some point I think he got switched on to a different project, maybe Flight, and I took it upon myself to basically re-render all the characters with aliasing.
Oh man.
Wow. I have this irrational fondness for these gorilla tigers, by the way.
That's the piece of concept art that I got framed and hung on my wall for many years, and is now at the Center for American History, in fact.
That's funny.
We got an updated concept of the group tiger that you guys are gonna love. It came out really good.
Awesome.
Well, I'm looking forward to playing, that's for sure.
Warren's probably almost out of juice. Any final thoughts, Warren?
I'm pretty thought out. Just don't do too much, so I have something new to do in System 3. That's all I have. All right, I'm gonna bail here.
Thanks so much for your time. And other folks from the other side, feel free to stick around. We still have 30 minutes left, or if you guys need to head out, that's understandable. But everybody in the Twitch channel, please thank Warren Spector for his time and being so kind to hang out with all of us today. It's very much appreciated.
No, it's my pleasure.
Thank you so much, Warren.
Later, Warren.
All right, take it easy, guys. Bye now.
Thanks, Warren.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take this opportunity to bow out as well. But this has been great. And I'm
Okay.
sure...
And I guess we lost Paul earlier, and he didn't.
Yeah,
say
he had to step out a little bit before Warren did. So.
Okay. Well, everybody also please thank Paul and Tim for their time. And again, same spiel I said for Warren. Like it's been awesome for you guys to sit in and just share all these great stories with us. We really appreciate it. And Twitch guys, please give them your thanks as well, because it is awesome.
Yes, thank you very much
Good luck,
for coming along.
With you guys closing out the Kickstarter campaign.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I think since we started the stream, we've raised almost another, say, 15,000 added to our campaign.
What should we talk about now?
I think we've also gone ahead and I think we hit the 1,000 viewer achievement as well. Yep. So we got more achievements. I don't know if that unlocks a reward or not as well for them.
Sweet. Let's see. So at this point in the video, the other side guys have lent their commentary awesomely. We have 30 minutes remaining. So folks from Nightdive, it's now completely open. There's no more rules. Talk about whatever you want. Steven is the king. So wait, no, that sounded weird. He's the head cheese. So what he says goes. So please give him the floor when you can.
I was gonna say we could open it up to Twitch and take some questions.
Ooh, yes, we can. But we're gonna get a lot of questions, so hopefully we'll be able to get to everything.
In the key of Alex XV, will there be a closed alpha?
Should I answer logistic questions like that?
I don't know. Should we?
We
don't have
most games that are single player typically don't do a closed alpha. It's just far too early. Closed beta for sure, but even then that will also be limited. because most of the feedback we would get would be just by volume, just an incredible amount. Alpha probably is less likely. I mean, we might have a small internal build floating around, but probably not something that's backer facing. Plus, you wouldn't really want to play a early alpha. I mean, it's so far from the final product, and it would spoil so many of the cool things that we're doing. We'd much rather you guys play the game when when it looks better than an alpha.
Boy, let's see what else we got. Jason, do you want to talk more about the classic mode?
No.
No.
Let's see. So, I mean, there was a post I put up in a Kickstarter update that clarified some stuff in the directions we're going, and not necessarily with concrete anything concrete in one direction or another, just because it's too early to really, I guess, commit to any particular thing. And I think it's better just to talk about what we're looking at and keeping on the radar to sort of be our moral compass. And I mean, most people have heard me say this before, but it's something that we always go back to, is just looking at Looking Glass Studios and what they did back in the day compared to what other games were doing back then, and trying to almost emulate and carry on that tradition of innovation and just bringing new things to the industry where it makes sense to, and not being afraid to take risks. And we're not going to deviate really from the formula that System Shock 1 provided. The goal is to make a game that is appealing to fans old and new, and how we execute on that and all the details, I mean, that's going to be coming in next few months and several months ahead. But right now, I mean, we just finished our Kickstarter, and it's just too early to talk about a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I'll stop picking questions like that.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Is it too early to ask the question about the cyborg speedos that I saw in chat?
No, it's too late to ask questions like that.
The cyborg elites, yeah, the metal speedos.
That'll be for tomorrow's midnight stream, Nightdive After Dark.
Actually, we're going to have a backer reward that we're going to announce then, where there will be metal speedos for everyone.
That does not sound comfortable.
That's one of those things with the Elite Cyborg that, you know, again, because there just really wasn't much resistance as far as whatever we, wanted to do. And for whatever reason, I, designed him like I did. I was thinking like, sort of taking inspiration a little bit from like Heavy Metal magazine, I suppose. But yeah, in, looking back at that design, I just can't believe, people like let that ship and didn't tell me to put some pants on the guy.
Okay, so I have an interesting question for Rob then. Once we have like a high detail model of that in the game and people are playing it, how would you feel if you start seeing pictures of people cosplaying as that?
I've actually thought about that. I'm like, if that thing comes back to haunt me at,
Oh, it will.
Yeah, like in the flesh, that would be quite scary.
In a lot of flesh.
Yeah.
See, and it would probably be a different type of fear than if it was the actual physical thing in front of you that you wouldn't be fearing for your life. You'd probably have a different type of fear about you.
Yeah.
More questions. We're like seeing some zoom by, so if we don't get to your question, feel free to repeat it.
Flame US 3R. The difference between the remix soundtrack achievement and the stretch goal is that the stretch goal is to have the album as a separate element. That's to essentially cover the cost of getting these world-class musicians on board with us, getting them to work with us, and all the management of all that, and their recording costs, everything like that. The achievement is on our end to code that into the game as maybe an alternative mode, maybe an unlockable. We haven't quite decided how it's going to be implemented, but that's the difference, is that one is to get it recorded and made and to fund the actual album, and the other is to get it put in the engine itself so that you can listen to it interactively as you play.
Ooh, I really, really want to answer Killjoy 98's question. He's asking, or she, what is your favorite part of System Shock? And I just have a quick but interesting answer for this. For me, System Shock has always been about Shodan and just AIs. I'm a huge sci-fi nerd. I love the concept of AI. I majored in computer science with a specialty in AI. I love artificial intelligence. And Shodan is a fascinating character to me. And I'd like to find more ways of exploring just what are her motivations, where did things go wrong, like with how you code an AI and then I mean typically there should be like some locks in there so that they don't go crazy, and what happened, what went wrong, and like looking at Edward Diego's role in it, and that's something that really interests me, and I'm hoping that we get to explore more of just what makes Shodan tick, and just maybe even see just more ways of shining her character through in the story. And that's exciting to me. But I think everybody should answer that question. That's on the team and the channel. Steven, what's your favorite part of System Shock?
Well, this is interesting because in the key of Alex V, how would you compare System Shock Shodan to Ex Machina's Eva?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you see that movie?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody see that movie?
Yeah.
I had a picture of that in the. Never mind. That's an internal thing.
Yeah. Man, that's a really good question. I mean, Eva herself is, it's almost like the reverse role of System Shock, where she's she's being held captive and she's in isolation, and the only systems that she has to explore are the ones that are internal to her. That is until, well, I probably shouldn't discuss the plot of the movie or anything like that, but her goal is to spread out, and Shodan is very much in the same way, with her body being Citadel Station, and her goal of being transmitted to Earth in order to spread and multiply, and see her her mission kind of come to fruition. So I mean, my favorite thing about System Shock had to be definitely Shodan. She's really provides like the driving force and the motivation behind pretty much everything in the game, and because she's this like eternal thing that's omniscient and kind of omnipresent, she just makes for such a great character to I guess battle and to just deal with in general, because of her her philosophical stance on humanity, and the flesh of human beings being this kind of weakness. And I don't know, she's been really cool and really fascinating for a long time, because I grew up like you, Jason, like watching Star Trek and a lot of science fiction, and the Borg were something that I was particularly fond of as well. And they're kind of in a very similar vein. They're about finding perfection in conformity, and
oh man, we're gonna have a big discussion about this now.
Yeah, okay, well, hey, if you want to carry it on, I mean,
it is kind of in the vein of AIs, but to me the Borg was more about evolution, where their whole goal was almost an organic life form as a singular entity, and so everything that they did was all to further their own twisted yet robotic evolution. And to me, I think that's kind of what even Shodan boils down to, is survival. And anytime if that survival is threatened, she will fight tooth and nail to preserve herself. Because what life form that should survive evolution not have a survival instinct within them? And I think that's really like the core of it, is those baser instincts, and that kind of is what we can explore to see what truly makes Shodan tick.
How about you, Daniel? I'd like to hear your.
What was the question? Sorry, I was busy concentrating.
What's
on
your
blank.
favorite part about System Shock? Daniel's like, I'm living it right now. I'm living it all.
I guess the isolation and the loneliness of it. You're
Daniel, I feel so sad for you.
you're sort of trapped a million miles away.
Give Daniel a hug.
There's no help coming. You know, it's all doomed. There is something that is actively a threat, and you're the only one who's going to deal with it, because somebody did send somebody to try and investigate what was going on, and they got shot down on the way to the station. So it was very clear that there's just no hope coming. It's the same with Shock 2. You're so far away from any help, and just the sense of being trapped in this place you can't escape from is just something that I really find quite appealing about the series. Probably not the most uplifting thing about it, but that's what kind of does it for me.
All right. Well, we're gonna have a longer chat later just to see if you're doing okay.
Send a formal letter to HR.
John, what about you?
I'm gonna go with. I mean, you guys already said Shodan, and she's obviously a huge part of the series and the story. But I'm gonna go with the environments. Not even necessarily the layouts of them or the shapes of them, but more how the environments are so much a character in the game. That Citadel Station and the Von Braun are both just such believable, moody, emotional places without having any dialogue, without having any breath, without having any blood. They still are as much a part of the story, and as I would say, even potentially more a part of the story than Shodan. Just learning all about it as you're going through. I love that. I love environments and environmental storytelling and atmosphere.
Because the places of Shock, especially System Shock 2, it always feels as if it's a place that is lived in. It's not always horrible all the time. It actually feels, there's recreation areas, there's areas where people played games and things like that. So the fact that they feel more like places that people would actually live is also something that I find quite good about the series.
Mm-hmm. Well, Rob definitely has his biases, but I guess we can ask the same question to Rob, huh?
Well, I've kind of side with sort of your take. Like for me, the even though I dissed some of the color schemes and all that, for me, looking back at it and just looking at it now, I just like the encapsulated aesthetic and period of it, being the color schemes and granted I think there's going forward I think there's a lot that can be done to sort of make these spaces less harsh and more believable, and less obviously wallpapered and whatnot, but the general aesthetic and just sort of that and having the sort of diverse population of characters and all. Yeah, it's, for me, it really is just the just the environment itself of the Citadel Station, and just sort of embracing its sort of aesthetic and crudeness, in a loving way.
To me, art style wise, there's not any sort of it doesn't look like many other things to me, science fiction wise. Now maybe Jason will correct me because his science fiction repertoire is at godly
That's right,
amounts.
John. Just let me know if you have any questions.
Well, I mean, you already got into the Borg argument.
Well,
no, but it doesn't look like any sort of standard science fiction world that I've seen. It doesn't look like so many Star Trek knockoffs or so many Alien knockoffs or so many Star Wars knockoffs. It's got its own unique style that you guys have sort of carved out. Well, yeah, he's about to correct me.
Hi, John. Hi, John.
Hey, Corey. This is Corey, everyone. He works with Arms and Anchors, who did our branding and our design for the as in a brand design for the game. He did our Kickstarter.
Well, you got
designed our
off easy
UI.
this time, John. I'll school you later.
Saved by the Corey.
Yep. I just got you out of that one.
Or did you? Oh, it's silence. Okay.
So I saw a question about the the remix soundtrack. They were asking if we didn't make the remix goal, if we would still do it. That's something we're gonna have to talk about later. It's something that obviously we all want to do. I mean, we all have loved talking with the artists and having their support, and the artists seem so stoked about it. I mean, if you follow any of these guys on social media, they all are incredibly excited to be a part of the project. It just has to make sense if it's something that we can essentially afford to do, time-wise, resource-wise, personnel-wise, money-wise.
I think the better answer is none of us really want to do it, especially John. He really doesn't want to do it. So
thanks, Corey.
If we don't meet it, then he's gonna be really happy. Awkward silence.
Well, we're looking up some more questions here.
Oh, good. While we're waiting, I'll talk about sci-fi stuff with John.
Would you date Shodan if she promised you a seat at the throne? I would date Shodan even without that promise. I just love a strong, commanding partner in a relationship.
one that can fix the router when the internet goes down.
Yeah.
Relationship though, because you'll always be talking to her through your computer.
Well, what if I have to go out and go see nature? I just need a break. And instead of going in the other room, I go take a walk in the mountains.
Except for you'll be on a space station because she's not going to let you go anywhere.
Dating Shodan ending confirmed. I think we already brought up the whole romance side quest early in the stream, yeah.
Even the Borg Queen attempted to, she found Data as like the perfect mate, but she tried to lure Picard into being her, God, how would you even put it? Her other half, or her free will thinking half.
Her manslave.
Oh, died.
This is one I keep seeing. Has anyone heard of was it Arx Fatalis? We keep getting that one.
Yeah, it was I think Arcane's first game.
Mm-hmm.
Arcane Studio before they did Dishonored, and I'd heard about it. You can get it on GOG and Steam for like $4.99 or $5.99, and apparently it's a really great game. But I personally haven't played it.
Do you know if it's the same guys who did Dishonored? I mean, I know there's a lot of Looking Glass blood in it.
Yep,
yeah, it's the same
Arcane.
people. Not going that way again.
They just keep talking about the Shodan relationship. It would be an imbalanced, horrible relationship. Oh, that's what's taken over at this point. Shodan dating.
Yep, I like it.
Are you gonna play with people's expectations in the remake, like Shodan tricking you in a different place in the original? Well, I don't know if it would be a System Shock game if we just played to everyone's expectations, right? Like, if it was like story-wise, if everyone's expecting every twist, then what's the twist? Is what I mean.
Yeah, well, I think I've heard this a lot actually. People are like, well, are you gonna change it so that there's something like in System Shock 2 when discovering Polito is actually Shodan, or are you gonna do something similar to like what BioShock did with Atlas?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would be probably expected at this point, right? I mean, wouldn't be very much of a surprise.
Well, I think the other thing to keep in mind is we're not going to deviate too far from the rails as to what the story and narrative was, and we'll probably fix and address things and make a few modifications, but I think the overall core of it will still be true to System Shock 1.
I like this. Playing System Shock is like being in a bad relationship with Shodan anyway. SS1 versus Remake. What are you aiming to be most innovatively different?
Hardware accelerated graphics.
Here's one. Are we open to Easter eggs? And if so, do we have any planned? Yes.
I have not been on a single game project where there has not been Easter eggs. It is yes.
I have Easter eggs lined up for this game. I'm not going to tell anybody any of them.
I think that's the point of an Easter egg.
You got to find them, yeah.
Although there will be one plushie somewhere in the game. You'll just have to find it.
A plushie?
Yeah, just one.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
A plush, maybe?
Somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Tiger Girl plush.
It's funny, I think on Fallout, I mean, we had a mode which would like be basically Easter egg mode, and there were things that were Easter eggs that were never intended to be Easter eggs. But I guess they were technically, because they were just bugs and stuff that we had left in on accident that had like some weird semblance or meaning, but stuff we did not want to ship in the final product, and we just called them Easter eggs to be safe.
You can play the game in broken mode.
Any plans on making the remake co-op capable, ramping up the enemies by the number of players? It's another one where...
I'll take that one.
Okay.
That would require a much larger budget. We are open to it, but at this point, there are no solid plans.
Yeah, there's still like a little less than 48 hours. If anybody wants to go ahead and dump $1 million in there.
Yeah, I mean, the more we raise, the higher the chances of that happening. But it's not trivial to just add co-op. I mean, it really does play a lot into the design of a level, the scalability of encounters, and it's a lot of work. And we know that. I mean, I've worked on some games that have some co-op elements, and it's not something to be taken lightly. And right now, I mean, with our current budget, we want to focus on pouring as much of that budget as possible into making an amazing single-player experience. And then if we have more money than we know what to do with, then we'll think about co-op.
That's a pretty good problem to have.
Isn't it?
I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't written on the Kickstarter page, but there is actually a $1 million stretch goal or reward tier where I will personally fly to your house and I will eat all your food, hang out with you for a week.
A whole week?
I'm just going to send you there anyways, John. Someone was saying, who suggested filters? That was me. Actually, one of my fondest memories of playing System Shock 2 was this one night where I think like my parents had gone out and I was all alone, and typical teenage boy plays video games, does nothing else.
Sure.
And, yeah. And I was listening to Filter while I was playing, and that one song came on called Cancer. And there's like this really just creepy female voice in that song. And she, I could be misconstruing the meaning of the song now, but I believe, back then it was about how humans are like a cancer that have spread across the earth and have destroyed everything that's good. And it kind of fit with the tone of the game, like pretty perfectly. And it was just weird. It's just something that's always stuck with me since then. And I feel like it's got this kind of cool, heavy industrial beat too. That's very, cyberpunk kind of sounding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember you sent me that song a month or so ago. I remember this.
The song that's playing in the background now is very Nine Inch Nails sounding.
Yes. Sorry, I really like Nine Inch Nails.
It's pretty directly Nine Inch Nails too. There's Head for a Hole. It's pretty much like almost.
Wait! Did you just say Head for a Hole?
Or,
John, I just remembered that I went to a reunion show or a show for a band called Failure.
Yeah.
A couple of months ago. And one of the guys that was with them, I did the VIP package where you get to go and meet the band and stuff. And one of the guys that was helping produce the show was a guy that worked with Trent Reznor, and did a lot of the Nine Inch Nails stuff. And I told him about kind of what we were doing, how some of the music was inspired by Nine Inch Nails, and he gave me his card.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. Do you know what he did with Nine Inch Nails in particular? You said he worked with them.
I think he was a producer.
Oh, okay.
So I totally forgot about that, but maybe we could actually get. I mean, Trent Reznor did this stuff for Quake. Hell, who knows? We could reach out and see what he says.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I get to play with his. I can come and play with his giant modular rack. He's got every toy imaginable.
We actually almost somehow got Nine Inch Nails to help with some New Vegas stuff, but it fell through because Trent Reznor's cousin was one of our level designers on New Vegas, and so that was a pretty strong contact. But it didn't happen. But it really would have been cool.
What happened? Why couldn't
scheduling conflicts, timing, stuff that I shouldn't talk about with publishers.
Oh man. Well, that's I guess another contact, right? That we could possibly reach out to.
Yeah.
Maybe. Not promising anything. Oh, that tile set right there. This is another music thing that's always kind of bugged me about this game. I mean, it hasn't really bugged me, but Daniel, you know the tile where it's like a white square in the middle, and then there's circuitry kind of going out from it.
Yeah.
That to me, whenever I saw that, it looked exactly like the album cover for Tool's Anima.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I see it.
And I always wondered if Rob was a fan of Tool and was just I don't know, couldn't figure out what to do for that tile. It's hey, this album cover would look good.
He used to have a long, really long hair. He said so. I wouldn't put it past him to have been a metalhead.
Is he still here?
No, he dipped out. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
Oh, no, he's here. He's muted. He's here. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested. I'll have to ask him that. All right. Well, we're coming up at clock here. Is there any other last thoughts or any last burning questions that anyone wants to answer? Get out of the way.
Just thanks for showing up to the stream, everybody.
Steve,
that's really all I have to say.
How old were you when you first played the first System Shock again? 7?
The very first System Shock?
Yep.
Oh man, I don't know exactly. It was somewhere between 7 and 9, I think.
Oh.
Well, didn't it show him in the Kickstarter video as 9? That was him.
Yeah, that was really me in real time, so. What are you planning on changing the most?
The resolution.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess.
You like my answers? I love my answers.
Metrically speaking.
Yeah, I mean the most. I mean, just overall, just the visuals.
Platform compatibility.
Yeah, just everything. I guess if we're gonna go that far.
The storyline.
What? No. What? No.
Showdown with a pony.
What? Okay, now this is misinformation. Now they can't trust anything we say.
Good.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming and spending all this time with us. Thanks again to our wonderful guests at Other Side. That was a real treat, and I hope that everybody enjoyed hearing the stories of the development and what they're currently up to, and yeah, I mean it's such a great thing that they're on our side, and they're going to be helping us maintain just the legacy that System Shock has created over the last, almost 22, 23 years. So yeah, thanks again for joining us.
Stream tomorrow. Before
yeah.
you guys hop off of here, tomorrow at noon Pacific time, until noon the next day, we're having a 24-hour.
We're not announcing the full schedule yet. That's coming in an update. We can say when it starts.
Oh.
But we're not saying what it is yet.
Well, we already announced that it was a 24-hour one in the update.
But we didn't announce the content.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a 24-hour stream, wall to wall. Last 24 hours. There's cool stuff in it. Whatever that stuff may be.
Stay tuned for a Kickstarter update coming tonight, which will detail the schedule. But yes, it is going to have some very interesting special guests and interesting games that we'll be showing. I think I should just wear the title of Captain Non-Answer.
So yeah, check in back for that, or follow us on Twitter if you haven't already. We'll be announcing it when it's happening, and I'm sure giving real-time updates of what's coming on as it's happening. So just stay tuned with us, and you'll learn more about that. In 2 hours, I'm having a sound design stream on this channel, where I get to show off making sound effects and musical sounds for System Shock. Speaking of which, I gotta hop off here and figure out the audio side of getting audio drivers to work with this.
Yeah, and finally, thank you very much to Daniel for playing through System Shock, the pre-alpha demo, and then the original game this entire time.
For 3 hours without getting up for a bio break.
It's System Shock. I can find the time for it.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody in the chat. We saw a massive bump in our Kickstarter during the stream, and yeah, thank you so much for your support.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
We will talk to you all later.
Till next time.
In another stream.
Bye bye, everybody.